happened, I challenged God
Mm,
because I could not believe that He would take my 17-year-old son from earth. I was not looking at the concept that God gave him to me and God took him away. I didn't, that was no concern of mine. I just wanted him here, regardless of anything. Um, I really think God used Trayvon as a vessel. The name Trayvon Martin, I just birthed him. I was just a person that God used for him to sit in here for a while, for me to feed him, for me to kiss him and love him, and then eventually he was going to be killed and his name was going to be worldwide. But I didn't want to be a participant in that story. I didn't want to do it, so I struggled with God, and I told God, no, that's the wrong mom, the wrong dad, the wrong kid, the wrong family. No, let's just start back over, and let's just like go back to how things were. And the more I wanted things to go back, the more they were not. And
mm.
so I gave in, and it was about trusting God and just letting things go, letting things play out, because we never know what's going to happen next in life. We know where we've already been, but we don't know what's next.
Good evening and welcome to the library. My name is David Leonard, president of the BPL and host of this, our Arc of History series. Tonight's conversation is organized under our theme for this year of Repairing America. Repairing America provides us with an opportunity to engage with issues facing our country and try to bend our arc of history a little more directly towards justice for all. It also gives us the opportunity to give voice to leaders, experts, and commentators who have not always been afforded such opportunities. Tonight, we are in conversation with our guest, Sybrina Fulton, author, activist, and known perhaps more to many of us as the mother of Trayvon Martin, a young Black man killed in February of 2012. Tonight, we will learn a little bit about who Trayvon was, reflect on being Black in America, on criminal justice, and on responsible gun control. Sybrina, welcome. Thank you for joining us and for being willing to share your story with us, something that I know you've been doing with all of us since 2012. First, our condolences to you and to your family. And I'd like to begin with this book, Rest in Power, which you wrote with your ex-husband. Could you tell us a little bit about how the idea for writing a book occurred and how you got going?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all, and welcome to everybody. How we got started was one of our attorneys approached us and, talked about, writing a book. I mean, of course, it was far-fetched for us because, we had no clue, how do you get started with writing a book? And so, it took several months for us to get started, for us to even make the decision that, yes, this is something that we're going to do. And so once we did decide, we were actually scrambling around to try to remember a lot of things that happened. I mean, some parts of it was gray for me, and I really don't remember exactly who all the people were in a room or at a meeting, or did we go for depositions in this month or that month, and did we go to, it was like, a lot of gray areas. I remember experiencing things, but it just the journey alone, just trying to recollect when things happen, was very, very difficult. And so we had a little help with pictures and, articles and things that were written. And so that's how we got started. We had a literary agent, a Miller and Dupree out of Texas, a women-owned business that really gave us like a blueprint of what we should be doing and what we should be looking for and things we needed to do. And after we did that, we came together, we had a meeting, and then we met with the major publishing companies in New York. About 5 of them we met in person. The 6th one, we did a conference call. And so from that point, we had a little guidance, so it made it a little easier for us, but we had to really sit down and try to recollect a lot of things that was happening. People had books out there about Trayvon Martin. There were articles out there, a bunch of news coverage, but it was never anything from Tracy and I, his parents. And so we wanted to make sure people knew who Tracy was, Trayvon was. We wanted to make sure that you had a bird's eye view of how we felt as parents, experiencing this journey, sitting in the courtroom, listening to the just listening to the evidence and listening to the investigations and things like that, listening to people's opinions and all of those things. And so it was a journey, just listening to everything. And we learned a great deal by writing that first book. And now I'm in the process of writing a second book.
Well, maybe you'll tell us more about that a bit later on.
Yeah.
And in reading the book, it does read like a journal. So it's mostly one chapter from you, one chapter from your ex-husband. And I was particularly struck early on where you talk about your life as being the life before his death, and then what happens from then on forward. So for the first part of our conversation, I'd like to follow that format and go back to what your life was like before. And if you need a moment at any point, please feel free to take it. But tell us a little bit about yourself, and maybe a little about Tracy, how you both met, and the life you had that Trayvon comes into your lives.
I'm actually born and raised here in Miami, Florida. I can't imagine moving anywhere else. I'm a sunshine girl, 100%. I gotta have my beaches. I gotta have the warm weather. I can only take cold weather for a certain amount of days, and then it's time to go back home. So, I admire people who can live in the cold weather, but I just got to stay down here. The sun is my friend. I actually have two boys. I have Sybrina Fulton. He's older than Trayvon, and then I had Trayvon. But my life was average mom, and I say it all the time, and people don't really quite get it what I'm saying, but just average mom. I mean, I grew up here. I went to elementary, middle school, high school, and I went away for college, and I got homesick, and I ended up coming right back to Miami. And I graduated from Florida Memorial University right here in Miami. And I was working for Miami-Dade County. And that's why I had been there so many years, because I live right here. And so I was actually still in college when I got the part-time job with the county. And so I graduated. I have a bachelor's degree in English with a minor in communications. I had one house, one car, and two kids. And I did the same thing any other mom would do. I mean, I would come home from work and turn on the news, start cooking dinner, yell at my kids, did you do your homework? You need a haircut, clean your room, the average, nothing out of the, just a normal life. I took them on vacation every year. I saved money. I did everything that I was supposed to do. Could not have prepared myself for this journey, for this tragedy, but just a normal life. Every year my mom and dad would take me and, and my brothers and sisters to vacation. And so that's what I did. Every year I took my kids on vacation to a different place. I pushed them a lot because I was pushed a lot, and encouraged to just do better. And I made sure that I instilled in them that I wanted them to be better than what that I had already accomplished. So I had one bachelor's degree, one house and one car. They had to get a master's or a PhD, and two cars and two houses. And so, we want to make sure that the next generation is doing better than the current generation. And so I was pushing them ahead. So far, my son is following, right in my footsteps. He does have a bachelor's degree. He has a bachelor's degree in IT, information technology. Very proud of him, Sybrina Fulton. And so just an average life. And so I say all the time that my average life was interrupted. And so, because we're not supposed to bury our kids, so it feels like, things are not quite right all the time. even though I'm learning how to heal, I'm learning to move forward and things like that. The grieving process is going to be the rest of my life. I'm never going to get over it. I'm never going to get past it. I just have to live with it because I'm going to grieve my son the rest of my life.
Right.
And so that's how average I really am.
And so what was Trayvon like as a kid growing up, as a teenager? Did he like sports? Was he good in school? Tell us a little bit about him as a child.
Trayvon was, number one, he was in advanced classes. He was on the honor roll. He did really, really well until he got until maybe about 14, 15 years old, when he started taking a look at girls and things like that, kind of distracted him a little bit from his education, but he was still in school,
Normal teenager.
Yeah, just a regular teenager. He was very affectionate, very family oriented. I'm remembering right off the bat, I was at a park for a football game, and he was on all the way on one end of the field, and I was on another end of the field, and he ran all the way to the other end of the field just to hug me and give me a kiss. And so everybody was looking, he really didn't care. He was a mama's boy. They both are. He loved sports. He loved the outdoors. He wasn't too much of an inside, young man, an inside teenager. He would play the video games, but he preferred to be outside playing football, playing basketball. He liked the outside. He liked to go horseback riding. He liked to ride go-karts, just everything outside. And I'm also remembering that he felt like everybody was his friend. Like he was one of those kids that, he'll meet somebody and him and the person hit it off, and he'll say, "Oh, this is my friend. This is my friend." Everybody was his friend. And so he was, very family oriented. He just loved to, just be around his family and be around his friends. And so we have a big family here in Miami. And so he, he spent a lot of time around us.
And I think I read he was getting interested in aviation, and that's what he was thinking about doing for a career.
Yes, and he could not decide if he wanted to fly the planes or fix the planes. So he balanced both programs. He went to Experience Aviation with Barrington Irving. Barrington Irving is the first African-American to fly around the world, the youngest one to fly around the world. And so he had an aviation program here in Miami that Trayvon was a part of. And there are some pictures out there of him with the aviation suit on, but that's what he was interested in. It usually goes from video games to playing sports and playing this and playing that. And to now you're thinking that he was at that age where he's thinking about what he wants to do as an adult. And so that's what he selected. My brother had a lot to do with it. And so he kind of pushed him and was asking him questions about what would he like to do. We always ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we listen to them, but we really don't walk them through what they need to do if they say a certain thing. And so my brother would walk him through what he needed to do. And that was one of the first things that he did.
I'd like to ask you a few questions about the night he was killed, if that's okay. He was with your ex-husband at the time, I believe, in Sanford, Florida, which is a little bit a ways. And what should we know about the early part of that evening?
Well, I only know about what I was told. And I think the All-Star game was that day, that particular day. I want to believe the All-Star game, that was the weekend of the All-Star game. I know he went to the store, to the 7-Eleven to get snacks. I know that, it's just a couple things that I know that are facts. And so it's hard to piece together things when you really weren't there. But I know my son, I know the yell, the cry, the holler, the help was definitely him. Nobody with a loaded gun is going to be yelling for help. I know that he was 17 years old. I know he was unarmed. I know he had candy and a drink in his pocket. I know he was minding his own business. He wasn't paying attention. He was on the telephone. He had his earplugs in his ears. And he was on the phone with a young lady at the time. And so he did go to the store. He was not even that far from making it to the back door where he was going.
When 10 or 20 minutes away, right?
Pardon me?
10 or 20 minutes away was the store, the walk. And,
yes, yes. Yeah. But he was so close to just it being all over by him being inside the house. And so that's what he was attempting to do. I don't know why somebody would think that they should stop him to question him where his whereabouts and where he's going and who he is and things like that, you know. And that came out in the court that he was stopped and he was asked those things when the police dispatch asked the person not to do that, you know. And so, you know, people feel a sense of security when they have a gun, but you're 28 years old and you're talking to a 17-year-old kid. That was a kid. By any means, by any, you know, whatever guidelines they're looking at, he's still a kid. He was 17 years old. He had just turned 17.
And it's this other individual who is acting as the neighborhood watch person for this gated community that encounters Trayvon and later apparently pulls a gun and kills him. What, from my reading of the book, none of this, no, you nor Tracy knew what was happening until later the next day. He was missing out all night, and then you get a phone call the next day.
That's correct.
So what, you know, the first reaction is it's a terrible loss, and you want to find out what actually happened.
Well, I was in disbelief. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, David. I was in disbelief. And I really didn't think that the picture that they had shown Tracy was actually Trayvon. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, this picture could have been Photoshopped. Maybe it's somebody else. You know, you just can't imagine, you know, somebody calling to tell you that your 17-year-old child is been shot and killed. And then to compound the fact that he had been shot and killed, then a few weeks later, you know, we get a call that said he's not going to be arrested because of the stand your ground law. You know, so it just seems so unfair. The whole incident, what do you mean the person is not going to be arrested? He was there on scene. He had the loaded gun in his hand. Like, why doesn't that make sense? Why would you not arrest a person? And a lot of times people want to say it's because of the hoodie. Absolutely not. I've traveled. I've done some traveling. I'm going to say that. And I've noticed the young ladies, the young men, it doesn't matter your religion. It doesn't matter your anything. They all wear those hoodies. Right. So it's not about the hoodie at all. It was about the color of Trayvon Martin's skin. And we have to say it in order for us to try to come to some type of resolution. We have to say that is exactly what happened. He would not have stopped a white kid. He only stopped him and he only chased him and followed him and assumed that this was a bad guy because he was African American, because he was a Black person. And then I think in my mind, David, sometimes, and I say, what if Trayvon would have shot him? Trayvon would be sitting underneath the jail right now. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind, Trayvon would not be out walking the street right now.
And in reading about this particular period, which covers a month or two, they detain the killer that next morning, but then he's released. And it's not, I think, for a whole 2 months that go by before he's actually charged and then turns himself in. Now, you and Tracy had to do a lot of work and a lot of advocacy and gathered a following during this period in order to even get to that point. So let's talk a little bit about the mayor, the police chief, the law enforcement. what was going through your head as you were navigating what turned out to be 2 months of between the shooting and the killer being in custody?
I think about, I don't quote me, but I believe it was about 44 days that had passed. And it just seemed, you want to fight for your child, but by the same token, it seems like nothing is going to happen. And so we just had to just blindly keep fighting, blindly stand up for Trayvon, because we didn't feel like, it felt like, and I can say this only because that's how I felt, and nobody can determine how I felt, but I felt like the Sanford Police Department were protecting him, were protecting the person that had shot and killed my son. You should have been protecting the victim. It felt like he was a part of them. And that's why a lot of times people say, oh, well, we're talking about police brutality and the excessive use of force and things like that. And they clump everything together and they call out Trayvon Martin. No, the person who shot and killed Trayvon Martin was not a police officer. He was a neighborhood crime watch captain, a self-appointed crime watch captain, but he was working with the police department to try to get some things started in that community. And I commend whatever they were trying to do, I commend it. But you had the wrong teenager. You had the wrong person, because he was not doing anything wrong. He was on the phone. He was 17 years old and he was minding his own business. And I stand behind that. Trayvon was not trying to get into a confrontation with anyone. He was not trying to fight with anyone. I have yet to hear that. But I've listened in the courtroom while they tell me that my son was armed with a sidewalk, that he fought this person. He did not fight that person. He had nothing on his hands at all. Not a scratch, not a scrape, no blood, no nothing. If you're in a fight, you got to have something on your hands. I'm not telling you because I've been in a whole lot of fights, but that's just common sense, and I don't understand for the life of me why you would follow a 17-year-old. Why would you follow this young man? Why not just let him go where he's going, and you can follow him by watching what he's doing, not by confronting him?
And the dispatcher, I think at the time, even said, don't approach him, wait for the regular police to show up. So there was even that part of the sequence that's on record as well. And
he couldn't remember what street that they were on because he was trying to handle it himself. It's only 3 streets in there. You either on this street, or this street. It's not a science.
Even getting access to the 911 tapes appears to have been a challenge during this period as well. So I just wonder, what was your assessment of what was going on?
What was going on was some cover up. What was going on was they were trying to sweep things under the rug. They wanted us to go back to Miami. We brought so much attention to Sanford. And originally, just to think about this, David, I was the person that said, I'm never going back there again.
Right.
Not back there, but I'm never going there, because I had never been there. Yeah. I only been to the Orlando Kissimmee area. I had never been to Sanford. I never even heard of Sanford. And so they wanted us to just be quiet and just go home. And it wasn't going to happen. Especially when they said, now see, I was one that believed in the justice system and felt that if he had been arrested, then okay, we're gonna let the justice system run its course, and the jury can decide. That was my set of thinking originally, but then when I seen everything that was against us, it was like, one of the things that still bothers me is the fact that they did a background check and a drug and alcohol testing on Trayvon, who was dead on the ground, who didn't shoot anybody, who didn't even have a weapon. But the person who was standing over Trayvon, they didn't do a background check and a drug and alcohol testing on him. So it was, the scales were unbalanced from day one. From day one, from the time that they came to the scene, the scales were unbalanced.
And you were able to get a very interesting team of lawyers to help you, the attorney Crump and some of his staff. What was it like having them come into the equation and try and navigate the challenge that you had ahead?
Well, at the time, you know, people had started because the case was like being a national story, and we had attorneys coming at us left and right, but we really just went on a referral. We went on a referral of somebody that knew Parks and Crump out of Tallahassee, and that's how we moved forward, by a referral. I didn't want to just use anybody that just bumped into us, and they call it ambulance chasing or whatever have you. I didn't want to just use anyone. I wanted to use somebody who was reputable, somebody who was going to help us, and somebody basically to explain stuff. Like, people, when you get in situations like that, you don't know what to do. You don't know what questions to ask, and you don't know how to proceed forward. You need somebody to really give you the blueprint of what you need to do. Like, what do we do next? Like, I had no clue what to do next. And so the attorneys, and I'll tell anybody when any situation happens, to make sure you get an attorney, not one you just look on the internet and find, but somebody that people refer to you, somebody that they've used and they've experienced this person, and they're suggesting and recommending this person. And so that's how we got Parks and Crump. I mean, I'm still really, really close to them now. Yeah. Crump is just, Hollywood now. He's got on a TV show, he's written a book, and he's helping a lot of families. And the reason why is because he's very good. He's very thorough. He just is just one of him. And so if we can clone him to be several Ben Crumps and several Daryl Parks, I think we'll be okay on the civil rights side, but is one of him. And so, sometimes families get frustrated because they can't spend quality time. But at the time, 9 years ago, when we were going through all of this, they had a busy schedule, but nothing like now.
Sure. And it's I think I remember reading that he didn't even want to take the case because he didn't think that you needed him, because obviously the killer was going to be arrested, which turned out not to be the case. Yeah,
that's exactly what he thought.
Yeah. And so 44 days in, the killer is charged and arrested. Was that a moment of relief? Was that a moment of hope? What was that? What was that like?
Definitely a moment of relief. I can remember where I was when I got the information. We were in Washington, D.C. with Reverend Sharpton. We were on the stage. We were on the stage for the National Action Network conference, and we got the information, and they told us that they had made a decision whether they were going to arrest him or not, but they didn't actually say what the decision was. So we were able to come off the stage. We went into like a breakout room, and we all sat in the room together, and we just didn't know what to think and what to do. So we prayed, we joined hands, and we said a prayer. And then we end up sitting down and waiting for us to get a phone call to let us know that he was going to be arrested. That was simply a step. Right. We were still in a gray area at the time. An arrest is what it is, and it's arrest. They're bringing you in, but we needed to hear more. We needed to know what was the next steps and move from there. And everything was explained to us. And I just thank God for the attorneys that we did have.
Yeah, really competent people to have at your side. It sounds like during this terrible ordeal. And so the next year is really about trial preparation, the trial itself, and then ultimately a verdict, which was one of not guilty. And so are there a couple of things that we should know about the trial? I don't want to go through, blow by blow around the details of the trial, but just to give our viewers and listeners a sense of that period.
So it was really something that was just left a bad taste in my mouth. Like, that was the first time I had, had to give my deposition. That was the first time I had been in a trial court. That was the first time, I had to listen to juries being selected. That was the first time. Like, it was a first on a lot of levels,
Sure.
for me. And just to have to listen to something that happened to my son, and ultimately for him to be deceased, and so that was a very, very hard pill to swallow, to be sitting in the courtroom and really just happening to listen to, just people give their opinions. To me, it was opinions about what took place and what happened, and who this person was and who this person was. And, just, it was just, I don't know, to me, it's all a game. It's a game. And the person with the most money, that's who wins the game. The person with the most prestige and has the most people they're connected to, that's who wins the game. And it was, at the end of the day, when they finished their closing arguments, we waited in this little room, and we were waiting on the verdict. And I was like, I'm going home.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I had enough. Like, there was nothing that I could do. It was nothing that I could say, but I started feeling sick on the inside. I started feeling like I didn't want to be in this place anymore. I didn't want to smell of the smell of the courtroom. I didn't want to see police officers and their guns and security and their attorneys and all of these things. I didn't want to see that anymore. I had enough, and it was time for me to go. And our attorneys were advising us, oh, well, the jury might have a question, you need to stay. I didn't want to stay. I didn't want to play that whole thing out and have to walk away knowing that I lost my son, and the person who shot and killed him is going to walk away. I couldn't stomach it. Right. I couldn't. Right. For the life of me, I couldn't. Right. And I remember it so clearly. I remember it so, it just was, I don't even know. It gives me a headache right now just thinking about the feeling that I had. And I was like, we need to go. Yeah. And when I got home, I took a shower. I had some hot tea. I don't even remember if I ate anything. I don't think I could have eaten anything, because I was just that, like, this is not right. This is not right. Like, I'm waiting on a group of people who did not know Trayvon and did not know the person who killed him to tell us what the decision is based on what they think. But it's clear that Trayvon is deceased. And it's clear that this person killed him. So everything else is just logistics to me. Like, I can see if you didn't have a killer, and it just amazes me how the justice system works for certain people and it doesn't work for other people. How they can apply the laws for certain people and don't apply them. It just amazes me. It really bothers me. But that's what happened. And I was home. I was in the comfort of my own home, and I was back in Miami. By the time, I think that was the next day or so that we heard about it. We took a few days off, and before we even came, because the media wanted to hear from us. But, at that particular point, I really didn't care what the media wanted to hear. And, I wasn't interested in giving a statement or a comment at that time. And so whatever we had to say went through our attorneys, but it was a blow. It was a blow.
Now, also during this period, support was coming out of the woodwork from all over. And the phrase, that we got to know was the "I am Trayvon Martin." That was the phrase that became a rallying cry. And so that seems to me to suggest some element of hope, perhaps, that people could see the injustice and want to come and stand by your side. What was it like to see that unfold around you, or was you too removed from what you were feeling and doing at the time?
Well, at the time we knew about the support, but there was a time that we did not know about the support, and we found out about the support during our visit to New York.
Yeah.
It was a Million Hoodie rally. We didn't even know what a Million Hoodie rally was.
Uh-huh.
And we went to Union Square in New York,
Yeah.
and we were just going there to thank everybody for coming out, and we appreciate, you know, that happened here in Sanford, Florida, hundreds of miles away from, you know, where they were in New York, but they were supporting, and we had no clue, no clue. I was feeling sick.
Yeah.
And we were just going to say thank you. But when we seen the thousands and thousands of people that were out there in support, that was the first indication that it was a lot of people supporting. And a lot of people felt that they could have been Trayvon too. At the time, the president was President Barack Obama, and he said Trayvon could have been his son. You know, so it was people that understood, but it was a lot of people that didn't, because people were saying negative things like, oh, well, Trayvon beat this guy up and Trayvon did this. No, he did not. He ran away from this guy. He yelled out because he saw the guy had a gun, and he still shot him. Mm-hmm. So I truly believe in karma. I believe in you can't shoot a person that's unarmed at 17 years old and expect you to have like just a nice life. You can't expect that.
Right. So this is difficult to go through, to talk about. And one of the questions from the audience I'd like to pick up on is you know, the person states, this can't be easy for you, but what motivates you to be willing to relive this with us? You know, what do you need us to know, and what do you hope we will do?
Well, the reason why I don't mind sharing, because I'm connected to a lot of moms and a lot of families. Right. in this, you'll be amazed, not only in a national level, but an international level. And a lot of people can't talk about it. Yeah. They can't tell you what happened about their son or daughter when it comes to senseless gun violence. They can't speak about it. They have not gotten to a place where they're able to talk about what happened. Right. I feel like it's a part of my healing. I feel like every time I talk about my son, I'm educating somebody. I'm giving them more knowledge. I'm being a voice for Trayvon Martin, who is not here. Yeah. I'm his spokesperson. I really, really feel like that. And I feel like if I don't say anything, then people don't know who Trayvon Martin was. And so that's why it's important to me. I also have another son, Sybrina Fulton, that I talked about earlier. I'm setting an example for him. I want him to know that he has a strong mom that he can look up to. And in the face of adversity, okay, I'm gonna break down, but I'm not gonna shatter. I'm not gonna fall apart. I'm gonna come right back up together, and I'm gonna stand up even stronger and even taller. I want him to see that. I want him to be proud of me. I know Trayvon is proud of me in heaven. I want Javaris to be proud of me as well. And I just think it's about education. It's not about me just talking to African Americans, other people of color. They already know what the struggle is. They already understand everything that happened. They saw it from day one because they're living it. It's people who don't quite understand and think to themselves, it must have been something that Trayvon did to cause his death. It must have been something Trayvon said, or no, it was not. People have to understand, people will kill you just because of who you are. It doesn't matter what your religion, your sexual orientation, or any of those things, how much money you have, it doesn't matter. They're looking at the color of your skin. They're looking at your religion. They're looking at your sexual orientation. People will judge you and hate you just because of who you are.
So how do we get beyond that? You know, this is, you know, there have been, you know, this was 2012 that we're talking about. You know, last year, starting with George Floyd and a series of other mostly young Black men, but not entirely, experienced violence, often fatal at the hands of public safety situations. How do we get beyond this as a society?
Not by ignoring the fact that it happened. We have to address the fact that it happened. And I think the turning point was George Floyd. Even though a couple of deaths occurred during that time, you had George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor. All of those came as, I'm gonna say, as a package. All of those tragedies came as a package. They're not cases for us. They're not stories for us, because we can't move on and go to another story or another case. This is my case. This is my story. This is my tragedy. This is my journey. And so I think what the situation with George Floyd, it opened a lot of people's eyes, where they saw some things, but they wasn't sure. They wanted to get involved, but they didn't. Now you have a lot of people that are actually getting involved, and it's this type of forums where you have people that are talking about what they've experienced and what they've seen and what they know, that helps people understand the whole concept. I have a brother that's a quadriplegic. I could never go through what he's going through. I could never experience what he's experienced. But I only know about what he goes through by me communicating with him, and by him telling me and being able to express himself to me. And then when he tells me, then I see it. So he has to tell me, and I have to understand a little better about what happens, because, by default, a lot of people see somebody that's disabled and they want to do everything for them. Well, a lot of times they don't want you to do everything for them. They want to do some things for themselves, because they want to feel independent in some small way. And so you wouldn't know that if you don't talk to them. You wouldn't know that if you don't communicate with them. And so that's why this is very important to me. This is my life mission. This is my purpose. This is what I'm doing. I reach out to a lot of families. I talk to a lot of families. I blame God, and I said, how could you put this burden on my back? Like, how could you want me to continue to go through this? Like, every time there's a tragedy, I can't possibly go to everybody, because now it's breaking me down. I'm still grieving myself, and so I just do what I can. I just do my part. I just, I absolutely just do what I can.
Well, there's a number of comments coming in expressing concern and care for you. So I want to share that with you, and also pick up the next question that is asking, what would you say specifically to other mothers of young Black men?
I would tell them exactly what I tell my own son. I can pray for him, I can cover him, but I have to let him live his life. It wasn't so much about who Trayvon Martin was, as much as it was important who the person is that shot him. That's the person that needs help, because how could you think it's okay to follow, chase, pursue, and profile a young Black man, 17 years old? Like, how could you? And I don't understand how we got to that place as a country. I don't like frogs, but does that mean I'm gonna go out my door and go find frogs and do harm to them and hit them with a stick and shoot them with a gun and kill them? No, it doesn't. I could not like them, and they're over here and I'm over here. We can coexist in the same world, in the same community, not in the same house, but we can coexist in the same area without me wanting to harm them. Where did we get to that place in America that we want to harm? We want to do harm to somebody. And see, right now, we are fighting the fight as Black Lives Matter, but they're also fighting the fight for transgender and gay all of that. They're fighting the fight as well.
Yeah.
And Muslims are fighting the fight. And Jewish people are fighting the fight. Like it's like people single out a certain group and want to not only say negative things to them, but they want to hurt them, and sometimes they want to kill them. And so that has to take some looking in the mirror, and deciding from that point who you are and why do you hate so much.
Right. There, early on in the book, you resisted or didn't want to think about the fact that this might be race related, and then pretty quickly, I think, come to the realization that there's really no other explanation for perhaps the behavior of the killer, the behavior of the public safety officials. And then when you combine that with the availability of weapons, of guns, and in particular the stand your ground law in Florida, you get this interaction that leads to the loss of life.
Well, the reason why, and I was just like anybody else, and I'm not afraid to say it. I was just like anybody else. How the news frames the story is what you believe.
Right.
But because this happened to my son, I found out more details, and I found out what was going on in the neighborhood. I found out who this person was. A lot of times you don't get that opportunity to find out who the person was who actually did the shooting, and so I was able to find out. So when the news framed everything, and when everything was framed by the police department, what they said was the hoodie. It was about the hoodie. It was about, because he had on a hoodie. This big deal with this hoodie was how the news framed it. You see? And
right.
So it made me think, well, this is what happened because he was wearing a hoodie. That's absolutely not what happened because he was wearing a hoodie.
Which just becomes another form of profiling.
Exactly. And and the person who shot and killed my son also told the dispatcher that he was Black. So he knew he was Black. He knew that he was young. And because even if you can't see his arms, you see his hands. Even if you can't see his body and his legs, you see his face. And so he knew that this was a young man, and he knew that he was of color. And he had called the police on a 9-year-old in that community. He called the police on all African Americans who came through that community. And so we found out that later. And unfortunately, the police did a lot of covering up. People were afraid to come up and speak and say things that they knew and say things that they saw. When they try to knock on people's door to try to investigate what was going on, a lot of people were reluctant to speak to the police because they felt like he was part of the team of police, and so they didn't want to be involved. There were 2 young ladies that did come forth and say, they saw things that was out there. They heard the yelling and things like that, and they heard it on the 911 tape. You heard somebody yelling. And I don't know about you, David, but if I got a loaded gun, I'm not yelling for anybody.
No, it's true. Let me take the next question that we have lined up. This is from Samira, who describes herself as an aspiring activist. And she asks, what is something you've learned as a Black woman navigating activism?
Oh, good question. I learned that it's not easy. I learned that it's lifelong. A lot of times you see people get involved with being an activist. It's the rest of their life. You don't see them get involved and now they're not involved. They're gonna stay involved because they're gonna find out so many different things that's happening, and they're not happy with it. And so it just makes you want to do more. It makes you want to get more involved and participate more. I learned that, support comes in all colors.
Yeah.
It's not just, if you're fighting against someone, and you're Muslim, you don't have to just get Muslims. If you're a people of color, don't have to just be people of color. And so I learned that as well. You know, we have to reach across the aisle, and you have to, you know, receive the support, whatever color it is, because everybody is not going to get it. Everybody is not going to understand. Everybody is not woke.
I get the sense from your book that you are a person of faith and that your faith is very important to you. Could you tell us a little bit how that has either helped you or that tested you, or you tested your faith throughout this whole period?
So when this first happened, I challenged God. Because I could not believe that he would take my 17-year-old son from earth. I was not looking at the concept that God gave him to me and God took him away. That was no concern of mine. I just wanted him here, regardless of anything. I really think God used Trayvon as a vessel. The name Trayvon Martin, I just birthed him. I was just a person that God used for him to sit in here for a while, for me to feed him, for me to kiss him and love him. And then eventually he was going to be killed and his name was going to be worldwide. But I didn't want to be a participant in that story. I didn't want to do it. So I struggled with God, and I told God, no, that's the wrong mom, the wrong dad, the wrong kid, the wrong family. No, let's just start back over and let's just like go back to how things were. And the more I wanted things to go back, the more they were not. And so I gave in, and it was about trusting God and just letting things go, you know, letting things play out, because we never know what's going to happen next in life. You know, we know where we've already been, but we don't know what's next, what will happen next, how long we're going to live, who we're going to be with, the family members that'll come and family members that'll go. We don't know those things, and we'll go crazy trying to, you know, predict what would happen. And so I just really just took it amongst myself and just said, you know, God, I just trust you. I just trust you. I believe that, you know, you're going to do the right thing, whatever this thing is about. Because originally for me, of course, as a mom, this was about Trayvon Martin. This was not about anybody else. This was not about Tamar Rice, Mike Brown, Sandra Bland, Arthur Grant, Eric Garner. This was not about any of those victims. This was about Trayvon Martin. But then as things transpired and things were so out of hand, I knew that it was not just about Trayvon. This was something that God decided. This was something that, I'm not saying God killed Trayvon and he had him killed, but this was something God used Trayvon Martin for, all of the Trayvon Martins, for the ones that you know, the ones you don't know, the ones that you've seen and the ones that are unseen. And so after I struggled with that, I meditate, and my favorite Bible verse is Proverbs 3:5-6, and it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not unto your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. And so I just trusted in God, and I just leaned on God, and that's where the peace that I have come from within. You know, I never knew how strong I was until I was tested by God. And so this was my test, you know. And so since I'm able to speak and I'm able to stand upright and I'm in my right mind, I look like I'm healthy, and I am. You know, I look like I'm happy, and I am, you know, and so God is using me. So he's using me to talk to other people. He's using me to support other moms. He's using me to tell people that lost a child through senseless gun violence. I did it, and I'm not Superwoman, and you can do it too. And so that's what I use my voice. I talk about my son a lot. I can't help but talk about my son. I'm going to grieve my son the rest of my life. That's my heart. He's in my heart. He's in here. When my heart stopped beating, that's when I'll stop talking about Trayvon Martin.
And there is now a foundation named for him as well. Tell us a little bit about that and about the work that the foundation does.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the foundation. The Trayvon's birthday, he would have turned 26 last Friday, February 5th. And you know, I just posted a collage of him with all pictures of, you know, current pictures, baby pictures, teenage pictures, just a bunch of pictures on our website. It's TrayvonMartinFoundation.org. And we're usually busy the whole year. This COVID has got us like doing some alternative things as far as Zoom and things like that. But for the most part, usually around his birthday, because we celebrate his birth and not his death. And so around his birthday, we usually have what we call is a peace walk and a peace talk. We want to let people know, we want to let like the community know, the world know that Trayvon had a right to walk in peace without being followed, chased, pursued, profiled, or murdered. And so we send that clear message. We walk a short distance. It's here in Miami. I'm inviting everybody to come next year because we're not going to do it this year. But we walk a short distance. It's less than a mile. And at the end of the peace walk, we have what we call is a peace talk, where we invite elected officials, community leaders, the young people. I have to have them there. The young people are there. And we just invite a lot of people to come out. And it's a conversation with a purpose. It's a pep talk with a purpose. We have entertainment and everything is really, really hyped up. But that's what we do to celebrate Trayvon's birth. And then we have a sit down dinner, which is a major fundraiser for us. We sit down, you know, we have dinner. We usually have somebody to come in and sing happy birthday. Every year I say I'm not gonna cry, and every year I cry when they sing happy birthday. I just have to get over it because I'm just gonna cry. And that's what we do. We usually award someone with a champion in their community or something like that. And so we've awarded several people. We also have the Circle of Mothers, where I bring mothers from all over the United States. And it's about healing, it's about bonding, it's about coming together. I don't do a lot of advertising for that because it's very private and very personal. There wasn't an organization when Trayvon was shot and killed, so I created that space through Circle of Mothers, and I get a lot of support. I usually have about 100 moms that come. There's no shortage of moms. I always have enough moms. I just have to get the right support to come in to help lift these moms up. I've had everybody, mom, that you probably know of and you're aware of, to come to the Circle of Mothers, you know, the Oscar Grants and Eric Garner, Sandra Bland, Michael Brown, just all those moms I get from New York and Texas, California, everywhere, Florida, just everywhere. And we all come together. And they have nice gift bags, and I pamper them the whole weekend. But it's about healing. It's about hugging. We cry, we laugh, we do all of those things. We sing, we do all of those things. But it's definitely about healing. And then they go back into their communities and they help other moms. And so I truly believe that is just something that we need. The first person who reached out to me was Tupac Shakur's mom, which was Afeni Shakur. She was the first person that reached out to me. She was the first guest speaker, keynote speaker for my Circle of Moms. And so she couldn't imagine. She said she had never been in a room of her peers. And so it really meant something. She wrote a letter to me, and from that letter, it touched me, you know. And so that's what I do. I write a letter because if that letter touched me, my letter could touch somebody else. And so I also bring them, you know, together for the Circle of Moms. Tracy has the Circle of Fathers. The Circle of Fathers is men coming together to be better fathers, husbands, boyfriends, whatever, sons. You know, they come together and they talk about, you know, things that they could do to improve their lives to make it easier for themselves and their loved ones. We do a back to school where we give about 500 book bags away to, you know, our younger you know, elementary and middle school students, and we give them, you know, like school supplies and, you know, just giving them a pep talk before they go back to school. We also have a youth summit. The youth summit, we reach about 1,200 kids a year. The youth summit is really hyped up and loud. It's really for high school students. And we want to talk about subjects that they don't talk about in high school. We talk about teen suicide. We talk about drug abuse. We talk about gun violence. We talk about all of those things that they can't, social media, and how you should look in your image on social media. We talk about all of those things that they can't talk about or they don't talk about in school. And so those things are important. Of course, we partner with someone for, well, for Thanksgiving, we do baskets that we give away to families and gift cards. And then for Christmas, we partner with families and we do a big toy drive. So if I left anything out, you guys can go to the website. At the website, you can see all of, the pictures of our events and things that we do. And we also have, you can donate there. You also, if you want to purchase some of our merchandise, we have hoodies, we have t-shirts, we have tank tops, we have books, we have masks, we have everything. And that's how we continue the work of the Trayvon Martin Foundation.
As we've been talking, we've been posting some of the links to the sites we've referenced in the chat, so people will be able to click on those or type them in and get more information there as well. But my God, it sounds like you're incredibly busy with everything that you just described.
I am. We have, instead of the peace walk that I mentioned, to celebrate Trayvon's birth, we have an event we're doing this Saturday. We're going to do a live, it's going to be like a telethon, but it's going to be live. Tracy and I will be talking, and we're going to invite some people to come on, and people will be able to see it. And that's how, we can't just walk away from this. I'm vested in this. I'm committed to this. I'm dedicated to this. So we'll be on this Saturday.
I think I might know the answer to this question, but do you get more out of this yourself, or do you put more into it yourself?
Oh God, I think I put more into it. I put more into it than I actually get out of it. But in all fairness, it's worth it. It's really worth it. And it feels like I'm doing things with a purpose. When you work with someone or you work for someone, that's their goal and that's what they want to do. I run the Trayvon Martin Foundation. I'm the director and CEO and also the founder. And it's like when we make plans to do things, to help other people, it really feels good on the inside. And so all the hard work you put into it, it feels like it's with a purpose. So I don't know, maybe it's a balance. Maybe it definitely is a balance. But yes, I get a lot out of it because it feels like it's with a purpose.
Are there other places that you draw strength from as well?
Well, my son,
and how is he doing with all of this?
You don't see him as much because I want him to have a regular life. I want him to try to have some parts of a normal life. So you'll see him, and then you may not see him for a while, and then you'll see him again. But he's always by my side. He's always, very supportive. He's really laid back and low key. He's just himself, and a lot of people want him to speak and things like that. And in his own time, he probably will. But, of course, he's still dealing with the death of a brother, And so from day one, he's the older brother. So he knew Trayvon his whole life,
Right.
And so to lose him, it's a problem, and, I try to, make sure that he's healing and that he's dealing with it and moving forward.
I want to go back to the book, and towards the end, I think you quote all or most of former President Barack Obama's speech, and just maybe you would talk about what it meant to hear someone like Barack Obama talk about it could have been his own child and so on.
Well, it was it was just overwhelming to know that he knew about what was going on here in Florida.
Yeah.
Um, but the icing on the cake was when we got invited to the White House and we actually got a chance to talk to him about what
Oh,
happened.
wow.
And yeah, that was like mind blowing, you know, to know that the president of the United States, like the head, the top person, you know, was experiencing, and that's only because he's African American, you know, and he understood that you know, things happen, and that we have to be mindful and we can't ignore them. You know, a lot of times, like I said, people like to ignore things that happen and want to write it off for whatever reason. It really doesn't matter to me about the color of somebody's skin. It just played a part in this particular case. You know, like I hear on the news, like some kid 6 years old drowns in a pool or a lake. I don't ask, okay, well, what color was he? You know, it doesn't matter. It's just that I'm thinking the loss of a child, number one, he had his whole life ahead of him. I'm thinking about his mom and his dad, and if he had any siblings. And what about his friends at school? You know, his desk is going to be empty. You know, I think about those things, and I'm sure most good-hearted Americans do, you know, and you just got to put things in proper perspective and understand that there's going to be good and bad in everybody. It's a good and bad in all nationalities and all professions and races and religion. They're going to be good and bad in everything. So you know, people are giving police officers a hard time, and they should, because they're shooting people in the back. But there's a lot of very professional police officers that are out there as well, you know. So I just think you got to look at the big picture.
Yeah. Are there a few other elements of hope for our society that you would like to point to?
For me, the elements of hope are our young people.
Yeah.
I
Right.
just believe that our young people say it all the time, that the young people are our future. They absolutely are. They're going to be the next presidents and senators and congress people and teachers and lawyers and judges. And, you know, they're going to be the next ones. They up and they're not used to what's going on now. Like we have experienced this for a very long time. People of color have. And so when you know, young people are just not going to tolerate this. I think they're going to make the change that we need to see.
We have the Black Lives Matter movement that is spearheaded by a group of young people. We have the Parkland the pro responsible gun control group. We have people like Greta Thunberg, who's talking about climate action. We had an amazing Amanda Jordan give the inaugural poetry address at the president's inaugural. So I can't agree more that, as you to use your words, young people are not going to put up with this.
No, they're not. No, I mean, I think a lot of things we've been fighting, and we're still fighting. The people that were fighting with me are still fighting, and the people that was fighting before me are still fighting. And I think, you know, it's a forever fight. It's a forever struggle. It never gets to a place where we feel like we are equal, or we feel like we're going to get equal justice on situations. I feel like this is just something that we have to do, and we can't give up. We just got to stay motivated, and we just got to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it's the young people.
My colleague Laura just wrote and wanted to thank you for your spirit and your work, and wondered if you'd heard of the Peace Walk in Boston that takes place on Mother's Day. We can send you a little information about that if you'd like to be aware of it as well.
I've never heard of it.
It honors a Lewis Brown who was a victim of gang violence at age 15, and it's his mother who also founded the walk many years ago.
Yes, please send me the link.
So we also have questions from registration. I'd like to take one or two of those. And ask you, because we have about 10 or 15 minutes left, so we can begin to wrap up as well. Do you think there'd be justice for Trayvon if this had happened to him today? We talked earlier a little bit about the increasing awareness that there appears to be in light of all of the events of last year in particular. This is a hypothetical, so yeah, it's probably impossible to say.
I think it'll be more support. I think it will be more people, not just supporting, but more people involved. And I think people's eyes will be open. Will the outcome be the same? Will we have the same verdict is probably what they're asking. Nah, I don't know about that. I don't know if that would change the verdict, because a lot of the people haven't changed. We see what happened earlier part of January. People are just full so much of hatred and things like that. Instead of, people don't want to sit down to the table and talk anymore. They want to bash your head in. They want to kill you. People don't want to hear about your issues, and they don't want to hear about how your life was bad or good or whatever have you. They don't want to hear those things. They just want to hate. It's a lot of people that just want to hate, and unfortunately. But I don't know if it would have. I think on the support side, I definitely think we'll have more support, but we did have a lot of support. But I think, you just got to get some people out of office. You got to change the whole police force and just make sure things are fair. And things just wasn't fair at the time.
You mentioned that hate is at the root of a lot of this. Have you formed an opinion yet about where that comes from? Well,
I think it's more deep rooted than people will believe. I wasn't raised to know about people in my family that was hanging anybody from a tree. You see, and so I wasn't raised with that in my heart. Right. You had some people, they would come to a tree and they would tell you the charges of the person, and they would hang the person with their wife and kids and family and everybody there. And that's the highlight, to see another human being hanging from a tree. And so that's more deep rooted. That's not kids in a school and you give them a black baby doll and you give them a white baby doll. That's more deep rooted than that. And the reason why people are so full of hatred is because that's what they learned at home. And then those people taught it to their children. And then those people taught it to their children. It never stopped anywhere. It never stopped. And I just think that the reason why people are opening their eyes not now, it's not about women's rights or children's rights or civil rights. It's about human rights. Right. And they actually believe that, okay, I saw George Floyd on the ground and I saw this man put his knee on his neck and I saw this man being killed. That was a human being. Right. And so it kind of changed your mindset when you say, well, how could that be fair? How could that be possible? Because if that was a black officer and that was a white guy on the ground, that officer would be in jail right now. Right. Make no mistake about it. You don't see these black officers shooting anybody in the back. Right.
So we're trying to undo 400 years of the history of slavery in this country and come to terms with that and realize that human beings are human beings.
Human beings are human beings, and we just got to keep chipping at it. We got to keep chipping at it. It's not going to change overnight because it didn't get like this overnight. Right. I mean, remember, we were only 3/5 humans. People of color was only 3/5 humans. We wasn't even a whole human being. And so that kind of justified the reason why people would hang you from a tree or people would enslave you.
What do you need from community? How can we show up for you to support and strengthen you?
Oh, God, who said that?
I don't know. It's question number 6. So,
well, question number 6, that just touched my heart. And I want to say thank you for thinking about me. But like I said, when I first started, this was definitely about Trayvon, and that's all I could see. I mean, I was just focused on Trayvon, but I know there is a bigger picture. So what I would suggest you do is connect to a nonprofit that's in your area there in Boston. It could be the National Action Network. It could be the NAACP. It could be some other nonprofit organization that's working to fight, to help to make sure that it's equal rights for human beings. Civil rights is good, women's rights, children's rights, all of those things are good, but we got to get back to the basics and make sure people are allowed to just be human beings, you know, and not be fearful that they're going to be shot and killed, not be fearful that they're going to be blamed for something that they didn't do, or things like that. And so we just got to get back to the basics. I mean, just do your part in this crazy world right now that we're living. Just do your part. That's enough for me. That's enough for me.
There
had to be a lady. There had to be a lady that asked that. Thank you.
I'm not going to argue with you on that. But,
thank you. Tell her she made me smile.
Good. There's another take on this that talks about the role for educators. That could be teachers, that could be college professors, that could be librarians. What do you think is the most impactful role educators can have in this work?
Well, I think the most important role that educators should have is, I remember when I was growing up in high school, we had to talk about a current event. And so current events are things that's happening and they're factual, you know, so maybe they can do, when they do current events and they're talking about situations that happen, because that's how you start. You talk about situations that happen on the news. And so you bring that to your teenage kids or your kids that's in their 20s, and that's how they continue to be knowledgeable and educate themselves and stuff. And my son, I still, he's a grown man, and I still talk about him, about situations that happen, because I want to hear what he has to say. Of course, as a parent, we think we know everything, but we don't. We got to listen to these young people too. And so I just, it's an exchange of thoughts and conversations, and just continue to do that.
Great. So I think I'll just take one more question. And this is really about your goals going forward. I think in some ways you've been telling us the answer to this question already, but I'll let you end with this. And that is, you know, what are your goals? When will you know the work is done? Or what will the signs be that the work is done?
The work is never going to be done. The work is never going to be done. I'm probably going to be an activist until I am in my grave. The work is never going to be done. I've yet to see somebody to get involved in being an activist, and now they're no longer doing this. You know, your age catches up with you, and maybe you can't do rallies anymore. Maybe you can't, you know, have lectures anymore. Maybe you can't, you know, do things that you used to do. And I'm even I'm thinking about Harry Belafonte right now, that's out of New York, was an advocate for civil rights, like really. And now that he's getting up in age, he can't do as much. He can't travel as much in those things. But you really it just motivates you to do more. Every time you hear about another tragedy, it just motivates you to keep going. Like, I can't stop. I gotta continue to move forward. I gotta just do my part. I gotta, you know, send a few dollars to this foundation. I gotta go over here to this organization. I gotta meet with this family. I gotta do. You know, it's just so much to do that you can't give up once you get involved. And once you're aware about all of these senseless killings and shootings and things like that, and people being arrested, you just can't walk away. I can't walk away. And so moving forward, some of the things that I'm working on my second book. It's about being an overcomer. It's about, being, at your lowest point, and how do you get back up?
Mm.
I found myself on a street I had never been on. And so I didn't know which way to go. I mean, I didn't want to be on that particular street because I had never been there, but I didn't know how to maneuver to get myself out of the situation. Like I felt like I was in a dark hole and I didn't know how to come back out of the dark hole. And so I talk about that. I was battling a disease at the time with my throat, and I didn't want people to know I had lost a great deal of weight. And the ironic part about it is that I didn't want people to feel sorry for me about the illness, but they were already feeling sorry for me. So I did everything to cover up this illness and everything to try to hide with the hospital and the surgery and the doctors and losing weight and all of these things. I tried everything, but they were already feeling sorry for me. And I really didn't realize it, just like, in hindsight, I didn't realize it. And so I talk about those things, and I talk about you just losing something. You lose a child, you lose a husband, you lose a wife, a grandmother, somebody that means so much to you that you feel like you just can't go on. Not that you will kill yourself or commit suicide or anything like that. It's just that you feel like I'm never going to be happy again. I'm never going to have joy. I'm never going to smile. How do you come back from that? That's what my book is going to talk about. Also working on just strengthening the foundation, just doing some things to strengthen the foundation to make sure that we are reaching families, that we're bringing awareness to senseless gun violence, and that we reaching out to families as it relates to grieving and healing, and making sure that these names that you hear and these names that you don't hear are still being represented. I got so much going on, but just in addition, those are things that's in addition to the foundation. But I still work at the foundation on a daily basis, but I try to still do my speaking engagements and everything.
Well, I hope when the second book comes out, you'll come visit with us. Maybe in person, although I promise you, maybe we shouldn't do this in the middle of February with all the snow that's happening outside. So
I wouldn't be able to speak, David. I just, when it's cold, I can't talk.
Understood. There's been many comments come in through the chat and the Q&A, and we're going to relay those to you so you can see them for yourselves. We didn't get to ask all of the questions and comments, but I just want to thank you so much for being with us this evening. Thank you for sharing the painful story and the loss of your son, but also for telling us a little bit about who he was and how he lives on through the work that you and your foundation and friends are doing. So once again, thank you for being with us. To all our viewers and listeners, please be well, please be safe, and see you next time.
Thank you.